First, I want to explain how I select fruits and how I photograph them. This initial step is actually the most crucial part of the process. If you take the photo incorrectly, the rest of the process becomes much more difficult, and the results, unfortunately, won't be as expected. For example, when I choose the corn object, I consider whether the entire corn or just a part of it should be processed. I pay attention to a few key points. First, the photo must be so clear and understandable that when viewed on a phone, the user can fully appreciate the texture, surface, and overall feel. If you take a photo of the corn from a distance, it's hard to capture these details. However, if you focus on a specific part, the viewer can more easily feel these details on the phone. So I cut off only the top part of the corn and remove some of the kernels, allowing me to capture both the kernels and the texture formed by the removed kernels. This is the crucial part. When making these decisions about angles and perspectives, your experience, ideas, and design understanding come into play. If you make a wrong decision here, the result won't be good. For example, instead of photographing the entire corn, using the form created by removing a few kernels seems more logical to me. Ultimately, this part is very important. For instance, I didn't get good results when I took a direct analogy with strawberries. Similarly, I didn't get the expected views when I used a direct analogy in the donor video. In the project where I visualized dumbbells in the gym, I also didn't get as many views as I wanted. However, I achieved much better results with videos focusing entirely on details and taking macro photographs, such as with tomatoes, kiwis, or purple cabbage. In conclusion, taking macro shots and transforming them into large format projects truly fascinates people. I believe that knowledge and experience in photography are very useful here. Choosing the right angle is a challenging process, but the results are equally rewarding. The second part involves editing the selected photo from the ones I have taken. In this step, I work on the chosen photo to make necessary adjustments. If there are any distortions, I correct them, and if there are unwanted elements, I remove them from the photo. I prepare a template in 1080 x 1920 format and determine how the photo will be positioned within this format. After completing this process, I'm ready to start working. There are some important points you need to pay attention to during this process. First, having good knowledge of photography, Photoshop, and manipulation is crucial. Nowadays, there is AI-supported Photoshop, which allows us to make adjustments to certain points in our photos. For example, if there is an issue with a pattern, you can recreate it using Photoshop's features. Therefore, I recommend learning a bit of Photoshop, as it will be very useful when working on your photos. For instance, in the corn photo, I noticed some unnecessary textures in certain areas. Specifically, there was a lot of clutter in the lower part of the section where I removed the kernels. To make that area more organized, I used Photoshop to make the holes more clearly visible. This allowed me to more easily envision the forms of the balconies I had imagined for that area. Therefore, making some adjustments to your photo in Photoshop is essential. The third step is to start working on the prepared photo. This phase involves transforming the photo into an architectural visual, an architectural structure. This step is really challenging and varies with each fruit, so there is no automatic process. You will have to do different things for each fruit and each angle you choose. Now, I will explain in detail what I do at this stage. When performing such an operation on the objects you have chosen, you will likely benefit from each of these steps individually. Sometimes you will only use part of it, and sometimes you will need to go into much more detail. You can use software like Air for SketchUp or Stable Diffusion. I use Air for SketchUp because it has many AI models and styles. With so many styles, I can produce different results and reach the desired outcome by using the style I want. We open Air for SketchUp and drag and drop the prepared photo into it. In the top right corner of the program, you will see models under the Type section. These models are AI-trained styles. Each of these styles is very good at performing different tasks. For example, the models in the Architecture section are very useful for visualizing projects like skyscrapers. You will see many different styles for villas, educational institutions, offices, apartments, hotels, and more. We will experiment by selecting some styles from here. For instance, I usually start with Style 6 from the Architecture section. Style 6 generally gives very good results in the initial scans, but there is no definite rule here. You can try each of the styles individually. After selecting any model, the first thing you need to do is adjust the creativity weight value at the top of the software. The more this value is to the right, that is, the closer it is to 1, the less it changes your form. If you set this value to 1, it tries to preserve your form as much as possible. If you set it to 0, it produces things that have nothing to do with your form. I want to work without altering the form initially, so I set the creativity weight value to the far right. Then, in the Create section below, there is a feature called Keep Material. This feature preserves the colors, that is, the materials, of the selected form. In this section, there are 3 options: high, H, medium, M, and low, L. I select H for high degree preservation. This ensures that the visual is highly preserved. After setting the Keep Material part, click the Create button to start the first scan. In some cases, depending on the form and pattern of the object you have selected, you may encounter distortions. To avoid these distortions, you can try different models. Try different models from the Type section at the top to ensure the scanning process is as clean and smooth as possible. This step is crucial because you are beginning to move away from the details of the selected object. The initial scanning process erases some details and transitions you to a different plane. After the first scanning process, the second scanning process comes into play. There are some things we need to do at this stage. First, save the initial scan. Click the Save button at the bottom right and select Ultra HD UHD to save it. This way, you save the scanned visual as the second visual in your folder. Our first visual was the one we prepared in Photoshop. This becomes our second visual, our second intermediate form. We will need to do different things for the subsequent forms, and I will continue to explain these steps. For the second scan, you don't need to do much. You can perform a second scan on your first scan using the same logic. This way, you can slightly change the plane, move away from the fruit, and bring out more structure, transitioning to a more architectural feel. You can change the model during the second scan, try different models to see which one gives better results. Since each AI model has different features and visualizes in different styles, they will react differently depending on the object you have chosen for your project. This part is up to your experiments and decisions. You will determine which is good, which is bad, which is usable, and which is not. You can work on the second scan with this logic as well. However, for the third, fourth, and sometimes fifth scans, a different technique is needed. The key to this is showing references. What do I mean? Whatever the object, fruit, or structure you have chosen, for it to become an architectural structure, it needs objects around it that depict it as an architectural structure. Therefore, I search for a suitable architectural visual from previously prepared projects, photos, renders, or Pinterest that fits my angle. This visual can be an urban visualization of a building. I find the visual that depicts where I will place my work and position it beneath, behind, or in front of my model. Thus, when I rescan, the AI uses these references to perceive the object as a building, an architectural project. This is where the breakthrough happens. The better you show the references, the more accurately and correctly your project's surroundings are perceived, the more the proportion and realism of your project will emerge. I do the reference placement in Photoshop. Using layers in Photoshop, I place different references beneath, behind, or in front of the form I have chosen to depict the location of the building. This process helps the AI transfer the model's features to the visual more effectively. Before that, I test dozens of results by applying less protection on my object. That is, by setting the Keep Material feature to L for low. Which one looks good? Which features are good? In the scan results, I try to find out if there are any materials that I can use in Photoshop for reference. I never use the results of these scans because they are not realistic. I am more concerned with creating a realistic form and figuring out which objects I can use in these scans. For example, balconies. I took a scan I produced in these scans and drew each one on the corn, adjusting them to be floor slabs. Thus, when I scan, they appear as floor slabs. By doing multiple scans, I tried to find out which one gave the best results. If you have learned the tip of showing references in this process, the rest is entirely up to your creative perspective and decision-making ability. You decide which features to take from which scan. The scans you see on the screen right now may look good, but many of them remain as comical architectural structures. I don't share these because they need to look like a real architectural structure. The reason that videos are more impactful is that they look like a real building. So you can perform the third, fourth, and fifth scans with this logic of showing references and reach a conclusion. This part is really tough, and I struggle with it in every project. I go through a lot of trouble until I find the desired result. Once you have decided on a result you like, save it. I save the final render as UHD. The hardest part of the process is up to this point because the rest can be solved entirely with software. Now I will explain how to convert the resulting image into a high-quality visual and how to create and process animations with it. The first thing you need to do is pass this image through an upscale application called Magnific.ai. This application turns your low-quality images into exceptionally high-quality visuals using artificial intelligence. The resolution of the image we have created is currently insufficient, and when you zoom in, you can clearly see that it is not very good. To convert this image into a very high-quality visual, we need to apply some techniques in the Magnific.ai software. First, you need to purchase this software. You can use it through their website. I know it's a bit expensive, but this is the software that will showcase our work, so it is absolutely essential. You can also use Crea.ai, but according to my tests, Magnific.ai produces incredible results. By adding your images here, you can either enter prompts or use the default settings to upscale your image by 2, 4, or 8 times. However, there is one important point to note. If you set the width of your image to 900 pixels before uploading it here, you have the chance to upscale it up to 8 times. That is, if you set the width of the image you got from Air for SketchUp to 900 pixels, you can upscale it up to 8 times with Magnific.ai. This is because Magnific.ai can only render up to 10,000 pixels in width. The length can exceed that slightly. If you follow this advice, the final rendered image will be of truly incredible quality. Despite the excellent results that Magnific.ai produces, sometimes it can generate some nonsensical artifacts, which you will need to correct in Photoshop. We download the image created with Magnific.ai to our computer in PNG format. Then we select 1080 x 1920 pixel sections from this photo. This is very simple to do. Open a 1080 x 1920 pixel workspace in Photoshop, drop the image from Magnific.ai into this workspace, then enlarge it as much as you like and save the sections in this format. This is how I usually do it, but you can do it in different ways. Ultimately, we take different images from this render at this ratio. We will animate these, that is, bring them to life. Therefore, I recommend preparing 3 to 4 or 5 such images. After this process, to animate the prepared 1080 x 1920 pixel images, we will use the Luma Dream Machine Video Creator AI. This part is really simple. What you need to do is sign up on the platform and purchase a subscription package. You can do it for free, but it takes a long time. I do not recommend it. Definitely buy a package. After logging into the platform, you will see a prompt writing area on the video creation screen. You can write text in this area to create a video, but you can also upload a photo and define how this photo should be animated to create an animation. I do a lot of trial and error in this part. I bought one of the highest packages because I try a lot and I'm not always satisfied with the results. Sometimes it produces very nonsensical results. Selecting the best from among them costs a lot of videos and requires spending some extra money. But I am willing to do this to achieve good results, and I allocate a budget for it. There is also a feature where you can choose 2 photos and transition between them. If you noticed, my transitions between scams are prepared exactly this way. I give the first scam and the second scam, and it creates a transition video between these two, which I use for the transition. You need to produce animations from here in this way. Create animations from the closest angles and the special zoomed-in areas or general views of the photo you selected to reach the final result. Now that we have all the materials together, what I do next is just assembly. The assembly part is actually quite simple. For this, I use Premiere Pro. I upload the materials I will use in my video here, and then I use the videos I created for transitions, speeding them up a bit for the transitions. This part is entirely up to your taste and editing knowledge. You can use other editing programs as well. As you can see, I tried to make different edits each time and add sound effects. For sound effects, you can get an Envato Elements account and download sounds from there, or you can use plugins for Premiere Pro. This topic is quite broad, and perhaps you can use the CapCut application for easier execution. It's very simple and can produce really great results. Now, I've explained the entire process and shown you how I do it. But remember, the reason I can do all of this is because of my 15 years of professional experience. I've been working in architectural visualization and animation for 15 years. I've learned dozens of programs, completed dozens of projects, and solved hundreds of problems in this field. I've worked a lot in this field. Therefore, I can do all these things in a very short time. Remember, the techniques I've explained guide you and help you find your way, but you need to educate yourself to walk that path. You need to know Photoshop very well. You need to know editing very well. And most importantly, you need to have a very good perspective. This is not something you can achieve in a short time. Over time, as you do more work on different projects and solve different problems, you will develop yourself in this field. This is entirely up to your effort. I will prepare very special lessons for you on this platform and support you in this regard.